make no mistake about it, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act jump-started an economic boom in this country pre-COVID across so many sectors that have been alluded to today and many of you have talked about, providing businesses with the means to invest more, raising wages, expanding their workforce. We moved almost 6 million people out of poverty during this period of time, directly related to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And providing thoughtful tax incentives aimed at keeping more money in the hands of our workers and businesses can go a long way for our communities and our economy. And I saw that in my district in Illinois. And TCJA obviously serves as a great model and a starting point to do just that as we head into the rest of this year and going into next year. And in order to achieve those goals, we're going to have to both protect much of what we did 7 years ago and also consider new policy proposals based on the world we live in today and our competition. And I look forward to working with my colleagues in this room to further promote U.S. business investment, address the affordable housing crisis, and economic development needs through tools like the low-income housing tax credit and support for our farms and ranches, and continuing to allow citizens at the lower level of our economy to live the American dream, which we expanded that American dream with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. One area, Dr. Winfrey, that I wanted to talk to you about, as we built up to TCJA in 2017, we talked a lot about how do we, on the international level, allow our companies and businesses to be more competitive. And so we worked on what was the appropriate corporate tax level, but also how do we repatriate money back to the United States? And for too long, many of our companies and corporations were parking money overseas because of the tax code we had here and the restrictive measures we had in place that disincentivized having that money in the United States. And so we did that. And I'm wondering if you can talk about post-Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that repatriation that's come back and where that money has gone.
That's right. I mean, that money has come back and it's gone back to Treasury. I think that one of the things that you highlighted here is that there was a lot of conversation around what that corporate tax rate needed to be in order to be competitive. And it's important to note that the corporate tax rate is not expiring at the end of next year. At the same time, we should still be thinking about what that tax rate should be in order to make it competitive. And to that point, when you add the 21% corporate tax rate alongside the state corporate tax rate in most states, you've got a combined tax rate at the federal and the state level that's higher than the corporate tax rate that is applied to companies in China. And if China is a national security threat and an economic threat, then we need to be thinking about how all of that relates back to how we are making businesses like these guys, and in particular Mr. Ramirez, more competitive and yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Senator Graham, it's estimated we repatriated about $3 trillion back to the United States because of what we did there. I'm wondering if you could comment on that reinvestment in the United States by companies here. And then number two, as we think about how do we win the strategic competition against the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, what we need to be doing from an economic standpoint to make sure we win that strategic competition.
Well, first of all, don't imitate China. Don't implement industrial policy here where you assume government knows more about investment than people who are investing their own money. I've been stunned at the bipartisan support for trying to compete with China by doing what China does. You want to compete with China, reduce regulatory burden. You want to compete with China, reduce the tax rate. You want to compete with China, deal with the explosion of programs that disincentivize people to work. Look, I'm for tax credits. I want to make it possible for low-income people to benefit from working. But when you're giving tax credits to people that don't work, you're extending this whole welfare system into the middle class, and it's devastating to America's competitiveness, and we need to be worried about it. So I wouldn't give any tax credit to anybody who is not paying taxes. It's a simple principle. Taxes are about taxpayers. You don't pay taxes, you don't give tax credits. You want to give people welfare, fund it. The biggest dispenser of welfare in America today is the Internal Revenue Service. Now, how did we possibly allow that to happen? That ought to be reversed wholesale, in my opinion. You want to start reforming, that is a very important reform. There are
Thank you
not
both.
many people in China that are getting paid not to work. I can assure you of that.
Well said. Thank you.